I feel like if it was me as a photographer, I'd be like, hey, photographer who did this, how on earth did you do this?
Move my body back and forth. Move my body.
Hello, my name's James. I'm a portrait photographer. Welcome to my studio here in Portsmouth in the UK and to the latest video where we are looking at recreating famous album covers. Last time we did a video with a professional wrestler, High-End, where we recreated one of Kylie Minogue's famous covers from her latest album, actually, Badam Badam. You can have a look at that through the link, which will be somewhere around here. And then we asked you for your suggestions as to what album covers you would like us to recreate. Kayfabe Carl got in contact and he wants us to recreate this image of The Weeknd from the album Starboy. Really striking colour scheme here on this one. Really striking pose, nice and symmetrical, really powerful image. Photography by Nabil Elderkin. You can actually find his work online, seek him out. He's an amazing video music producer and there's an amazing body of work, so do have a look at his work online. Having a look at this image, we thought we'd invite one of the brightest talents in UK professional wrestling, the current British heavyweight champion, the champion of the whole of Britain, Michael Oku.
Oh, hello.
You're the champion of Britain.
Heavyweight at all.
Now, the really cool thing about portrait photography for me is that with every portrait photograph, the clues are there as to how an image was shot. So you can have a look at the reflections in eyes, the reflection on jackets, the color scheme, the way that light bounces around the face, and you can get an idea about how the photographer achieved the image. In this instance, I'm surmising that we've got roughly something between a 3 and a 4 light setup, and I'll explain that one light at a time now. I think because the subject in the foreground is entirely encased in blue light, means that there was blue gels used to light the foreground and to light our subject. With that in mind, there must be some sort of light on that background. It's quite a flat red background, unless it was dropped in afterwards, but assuming it was done in camera, we know that there's like a big light source on the background, making everything a nice even tone of red there with no spill from our blue light. So we have to sort the background first. The key light is the second thing that I'll try and look for, and the key light in this instance is the main light that's photographing our subject in the foreground. I'm surmising, because of the shadows down by the side of the nose, the shadows down by the side of the face, that this was a beauty dish, some sort of small modifier with a lot of fall off, a lot of contrast from light through to shadow. In addition, there's some sort of uplighting underneath the nose here where it's very bright, underneath the chin here for us, and just underneath the lips there. And what that suggests to me is that there's a low light coming from low down, uplighting our subjects, either in the form of a reflector, or more likely, because everything's quite blue and quite pungent here, another light with a blue gel on it. So that's 3 lights so far: a background light, a key light, and a fill light. But there is one more light in here, and we can just see, if we look at the side of the jacket here where it's quite dark, compared to the side of the jacket here where there are highlights, I would suggest that there is a 4th light coming in from the side, another blue gelled light, more direct light source, just something just giving us a little bit of separation from our subject to the background. Let's try and work out these lights one at a time, one stage at a time. If we do our lights one at a time, then we can see when mistakes have been made and we can roll back a lot easier rather than trying to set all 4 lights up at once. I want to get that background light first, so we're going to start off with the background light. We've dropped down our red paper backdrop all the way to the floor here. As we've discussed, there's going to be a lot of blue lit gels used in studio here. So there is the potential to have fall off, which could create quite a muddy backdrop and also discolor the red backdrop. So what we're going to do in this instance is we're going to use a low panoramic softbox to give us a wide, even spread of light. I've brought it about 2 meters away from the backdrop here, which will give us an even softer spread of light, so there's really little fall off. As we've seen in the photo, there's no fall off on that red backdrop. It's a pungent saturation and luminance of red across the whole image. And to make doubly sure, we've added a red gel inside here to make sure that all of the light that's coming out of that flash tube is bright red, to give us the most pungent, most saturated red on the backdrop possible. We're going to turn that light on and just take a few shots of the backdrop here with our settings in camera. I'm going to try and achieve something like an f5.6 at 100 ISO, 160th of a second shutter speed. So we're just using standard studio flash sync for this image, trying to achieve that red backdrop. And then once that's done, we can start building our set and our lighting setup for the subject and for the foreground. It also looks like a reasonably wide angle lens, but I want the flexibility when I come down to shoot Michael for the portrait to adapt and to change once we've set the lights up. So I've gone back to my workhorse lens, my 24-105 Canon L series f4 lens. Let's take a look at this backdrop. Cool, so we can see here, we're live tethering throughout the shoot so that we can see things on the screen nice and big. And what we've got here is a really, really flat red backdrop lit by the red light, and that's going to be separated far enough away from our subject so that this should stay this tonality and this color. So we know we're going to be shooting at these settings. We're not going to need to change any settings throughout the shoot, so we can just concentrate on balancing the exposure of our key lights, our fill lights and our kicker lights to make sure that there's no spill and to make sure that our subject is correctly exposed in the foreground. So you can see from our original image that the Weeknd sat down in quite a nice leather armchair. We don't have a leather armchair, unfortunately, here today, but we do have a chair. And what that's done is it's allowed Michael to sort of bring his knees up a little bit and use them as the leaning pad to lean forward into this symmetrical pose. The second light we're going to bring in now is the key light, or the main light. And what we've chosen to go for here is a beauty dish. If you come in close, you can see that it's got a blue gel on the inside, so all of the light coming through here will be blue, and it's on an overhead boom arm, so we can get it nice and symmetrical, almost butterfly style, right over the top of Michael's head. What I'm aiming for here is 45 degrees straight down from the light source into the top of the eyes there. So we're just going to swing it round here, bring it back just a little bit, and you can see here that there'll be a direct line coming from the light source down into the face here. We're going to take the shot, double check that there's no spill on the background, adjust the exposure of this main light until we get a nice pungent blue, and then start bringing in the other two lights once this one's right. So there's a few things that we notice here from the first shot that we've taken just with the single light. It's a little bit bright, so I'm going to dial back the exposure just a little bit on our main light just to bring those blue tones into a little bit of a deeper saturation. It's also a little bit high where the eyes have gone into shadow here, so I'm just going to try and bring that light down even further and have it as more of a direct light straight into Michael's face to sort of replicate what's going on here. Then we're going to start working on the pose. And we're going to bring in our third light, bring in our fill light from there. But at the moment, quite pleased with that. Let's see if we can just refine the details, keep making small changes, and get closer to the album art that we're trying to replicate. One other thing is I really want to emphasize the dark shadows down by the side of the face and the side of the nose. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in these two reflectors either side here, with the black side facing in to sandwich and to create a nice catch of light, a nice light trap where the light won't bounce around and it'll be nice and controlled in here. So we're just going to bring those in now. So we've just adjusted this key light, taken it down about 1.5 stops, which means we're now getting a darker blue coming through. The less power that comes through that gel, the darker the color will be. We've changed the seat so that Michael's a little bit lower so he can replicate the pose a lot easier, and we've just introduced some fine attention to detail in terms of the hand placement and the elbow placement to make sure that we're getting as close a pose as possible to replicate the album artwork. Let's have a look at the latest one here. The reflectors have also come in, which has given us a little bit more controlled light there to the side, but I still feel there's a little bit of bounce that needs to come back up, so we're going to introduce a fill light in underneath, and we're going to get the kicker light in as well on this side to give us a little bit of shine on the side of the jacket here. This is going to be our fill light, a panoramic softbox. Put a blue gel in this one here. We're not going to use a tripod on this one. We're just going to place it on the floor there, and there's going to be enough soft light fill coming up from the softbox here just to give us a little bit of lift in those lower areas of the face. This fill light coming from underneath is feathered, which is going to reduce some of the power, and it needs to be at a lower power than our main light as well, so as not to overpower it. It's just lifting some of those shadow areas underneath the face. Let's take some shots, see how it looks. Yeah, that's great now. So that's now balanced out a lot better, I think, in terms of like the balance between the background exposure and the foreground exposure. So we know that we're shooting there well. What we need to do now is just adding this little kicker light. This little kicker light just coming off of the shoulder. We're going to use a very simple light source here, single reflector cap on the edge, and we're just going to sellotape, there you can see that, a light blue gel onto the edge of that. Quite low power. We'll take it on a couple of different exposures, see what we get from there, have a little experiment and see if we can replicate the final image. There you go. Yeah, have a look.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's wild. I'm going back and forth and just looking. How on earth did you do this? You're just like, no, yeah, this aperture, this other thing.
So now we've got our lighting setup sorted, we're happy with our placement. It's important to use things in photography that you really, really enjoy as inspiration. So the important thing here is to try and create our images of our own, try and create our own style and our own ideas that will work within this format. So let's have a little bit of an experiment with that. So that's that. These are the shots of Michael. Michael, what did you think?
Magic. I'm sure you've heard that word many times.
Magic. Thanks very much to Kayfabe Carl for giving us the suggestion. If you'd like to put your own suggestion as to what album artwork we could recreate next, then stick it in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. Share the video if you like it. Have a look at all the other videos on our channel. Load of other tutorials coming soon. But for now, all the best.